Do you have anything new, Ian?
Do new? Like how new? Since the last time we talked, or
I guess new to Kirk. I think
Yeah.
I'm
new to
caught up on your
Kirk?
shoes.
Yeah, you're intimately caught up with my shoes,
Yes.
actually. Yeah. I think last time we spoke, I was still kind of a part-time firefighter here in Leadville, and I might have been teaching by then as well. But so currently, I am a full-time firefighter EMT with Leadville Lake County Fire Rescue here in the town of Leadville in Lake County, Colorado. I also teach and instruct for, I'll go down the list here: EMR, EMT, Fire Academy, and then Fire 2. And then that list is growing still. So I actually start teaching from the 17th of this month all the way to the end of the summer, on top of working full time at the fire department. So I'm going to be busy.
But you can
And
also afford shoes whenever you want.
sometimes.
Are there a lot
But
of fire emergencies or fire department type emergencies in a town as small as Leadville?
weirdly enough,
Yeah.
I'm yeah. So for the most part, the fire service is largely medical. It's kind of something we've had to adopt into, as fire suppression in homes and buildings in general is better. Like things don't catch on fire as easily anymore. So we had to kind of add more things to our quiver. So we run a large amount of medical calls as well. So we're all trained EMTs. But I mean, this last shift, I ran zero medical calls. It was all gas leaks and car wrecks and things like that, you know?
What I have a couple questions about this. I don't even know what we're talking about today, so I'm gonna
Me
get to
neither.
my curiosity. Well, I mean, I have an idea, but specifically,
Sure.
Brakken is setting the stage for us today. What would be like the furthest fringe thing a firefighter would do and get called for and respond to? Like the old cat in the tree, right? Something
I've
like
done that
that.
twice.
Okay, yeah.
And I have caught zero cats out of trees.
It's good to know. What would be
Yeah.
some other fringe things that you get called for and would be like, yeah, we'll go do this? Anything come to
I
mind?
Yeah, a month ago we cut a gutter off a lady's house because she was scared to go outside her front door because of the snowpack that was like pushing the gutter down.
Hmm.
So we just came over and just like, sawzalled it off. So we'll do. I mean, we don't really do those things, but we'll do them. Just in the interest of like helping the community. But I
What
mean,
what would a call like that cost her?
I have no idea, honestly.
More than
Like
calling
we
a
do.
handyman.
Exactly. Well, we do a good amount of like vehicle unlocks for people who just can't afford a tow, or like tows aren't available to
Hmm.
come and unlock their car. And that's we're supposed to charge them like $100, but we've never charged anybody.
Huh. I had
So
a
someone out there is screaming at me to stop telling people this.
I had a guy. It's the most social media interaction I've ever gotten in all my years, and I'll tell you how this came to be. Meaning like shares, comments, and it was at the park, and I dropped my key to my car after I locked it down into the hood instrument into like the you couldn't get at it by opening the hood. It was like in a weird vent system. I can't
Uh,
describe where it was. I couldn't get to it. With my one key, I couldn't get in my car. I was stuck in my running spandex. I was cold. It was the fall.
Perfect.
And this cop car coming to make sure nothing bad was happening in the neighborhood. I was like, hey, can I just bug you for a second? Dude, they pulled out the stops to help me get my car key out of my car. The police, firefighter, some guy came. I was like, this felt kind of pathetic. The point being, I posted a picture being like, these guys, this is their job, I guess. They'll do this. And they
Hmm.
shared it across all the department's social media channels, and it got like 15,000 likes. This is how you should be as a police officer or a firefighter helping this damsel in distress. And so, anyways, they helped me take apart like the dash of my truck from the outside. and dig out this key so I could get back into my vehicle. So I know it scales that far from center because I experienced
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, and we get calls for anything you can really think of that someone just doesn't know how to solve a problem somewhere in the county. And for the most part, we can at least point them in the right direction. Very rarely is it just like, I don't really know what we would do for you. Like there's a cabin up another like 150 feet from town that's like in the woods, in the mountain, like always covered in snow. You have to backcountry ski to it. And these people are up there for New Year's. They got, they were hungover the next day. They all had altitude sickness. They didn't know how they were going to get down. It's like, we can't drive a fire truck to that. So I don't know how to help you.
That's a. They were so hungover and altitude sick, they were fearful for their lives and couldn't leave the abode.
I mean, if like at that point, we'll call search and rescue. But
Was it checkout for their Airbnb and they didn't think they could leave?
I really couldn't tell you. Like someone else took the phone call, thankfully, but
Without
it was.
using their name, do you have like one or two people who seem to call every week about something?
So we used to have a guy who lived in Denver but has a house here who would call us about once a month and just ask us what the weather was. And that's not I thought it was a joke when I first started, or like going through the academy. There's a list of these like job performance requirements that you have to be able to hit in order to obtain your certification to then go work for a fire department. And during that, one of the job performance requirements is literally like answer a phone, take a message. And the joke that they would tell us is like, yeah, someone's gonna call you once a month, ask you what the weather is. It has nothing to do with your job. So, like, 6 months down the line, I start working for the department, and then I get that call. I think I've had it 4 times now. Just like, well,
There used to
it's
be.
raining.
Was that the number you could call about the time? You could just call a number, tell you the time.
What time is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they did weather too. All right, I have one last question about this, then we can move on. Brakken,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but since we got him, had a gym member, the gym I partnered with for a long time.
Mhm.
Pretty much was an emergency responder, and he would come in the gym after a day of working with people who just died in his ambulance and trauma stuff, car accidents, horrible medical emergencies, and that was his daily life. Do you ever deal with that? And like, I don't know how he did it because he's like, you disconnect from the situation and know it's your job, and it's the only way he can do it. Do you ever deal with that, or do you ever dread like the call? Be like, oh gosh, what do you do with
Yeah, I
that?
mean that stuff does happen. I've run pretty horrific car accidents and DOAs. It's a dead on arrival and um, all kinds of stuff like that. And it's weird to say that you kind of do have to compartmentalize that. Like you have to put that away and just deal with like what's happening because there's always someone else in the situation that needs you to be like unaffected by it,
Mm.
right? So you have to be there to solve the problem. And then afterwards, like I've run calls where we get back to the station and everyone just kind of sits there and we talk about it. We call in a neighboring department to come cover our station, and we don't run any calls that day. We're just kind of done. We hang out and relax and like try to deal with that. But yeah, I mean that stuff happens kind of on a daily.
Mm. I don't know
And
how
it's
I would
happening
handle
all
that.
around.
I don't know
Yeah.
how I would handle that. How would you handle that, Brakken? Would you
I
be
don't know.
able to deal with that? I mean, assuming you'd be trained, and of course,
I just don't think you know
yeah.
who you are in that situation until you're there. And
Yeah.
thankfully, I haven't had to be there.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean,
I think it's interesting about his job and worth people knowing that this is in Leadville. So this is a place people go for like high altitude, 10,000 foot plus remote adventure. And that, in talking with Ian over the years now with this, is that like that everything's amplified. Every problem's more difficult. either because there's nothing for an hour, 60-minute like help to get there, or because there
Mhm.
was 60 inches of snow, or because it like power doesn't run out to this area or whatever. Like all the problems are just different up there. Kirk, you and I are both city dwellers. You're not anymore. Actually, you moved out to the better life, but it's just when we see fire trucks go by, it's different reasons often than what Ian deals with. And I think it's fascinating, but you're more isolated and on your own, it seems like, than like where we are. No department
Yeah.
is more than, I would say, an 11-minute drive from the next department.
Yeah, we're a one station department. We one fire truck. At most, there's 5 or 6 people on that truck, and there is no one else coming for at least an hour. So we have to be pretty good at figuring out and dealing with the problem before we even get like anyone saying they're on the way to help.
Why a firefighter? And I think this will play in, right, with Ian's training, and you work 24-hour shifts, Ian?
48.
48. So I have a feeling this is all intertwined, which I have questions about too. But why a firefighter?
If my captain's listening, it's because I want to do hard things and serve my community. Uh, if everyone else is asking, it's I was attracted to to kind of like the jack of all trades ness of it. You have to be good at a lot of different things, and not just like okay at them. Like we have to be really good at them. But it was a
Master of all
chance to,
trades, I guess would be the saying.
yeah, yeah. I guess not jack, but master. Yeah. It's it's a different thing every hour. Where we have no idea what's going to happen in the day. We have a plan for the day, but getting to use my brain and body to almost like its fullest extent at in every situation is really really cool, and it's like kind of a selfish reason to do it, like just because I like the way it makes me feel, but also the fact that I can give back to this area that I visited once and fell in love with and immediately tried to figure out how to move here and live here forever. um, that's been super cool as well.
That's a really
Like
good answer, and I don't want to detract from it. I want to come right back to that. But can you guys hear music in the background for me?
nope.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So as most people know by now, City Hall is like it's my window and then the parking lot. And people come in every day and just sit here with either their speakerphone on in their car or their music playing. And right now, Super Freak is playing in someone's car really
Oh,
loud. And
nice.
it's been going for like 2 minutes straight now. So you're telling like this really emotional, like heartfelt answer. And I should have Rick James in my ear.
It could be worse.
All right.
That's a good answer. I like that answer. I'm very satisfied with that answer. That is the answer I believe is true and also would want to hear. So that's a nice
All right.
combination. Yeah. Brakken, what are we doing here today?
Well, we're following up on Ian because we've had Ian on here before. And where we had left off was that Ian had done the OCR thing, but it started with a weight loss journey.
Mhm.
What, not that metrics matter, but they do matter. What was your highest weight we had talked about you had hit?
325.
So 325, got into fitness, personal training. Just this is the Cliff Notes recap. Got into OCR, had completed Spartan Ultras, and had done World's Toughest Mudder, I believe twice, maybe, when we talked
Done it
last.
3. Yeah.
Maybe it was third or preparing for the third. And I think you were in the process of moving or had just moved to Leadville. I'm not entirely sure
Um,
where you were located the last time we talked.
I was in Twin Lakes,
That's
so
right.
just outside of
You were
Leadville,
you were in
actually.
Twin Lakes. But
Hmm.
since then, Ian has departed from the OCR scene for the most part and has fallen in love with the mountains, as people in Leadville do, but with ultra distance racing. And so we had talked, what was 60-ish where you had been at the time for World's Toughest Mudder, 60 miles?
65.
65 at the time we'd
Mhm.
recorded. So,
Mhm.
and now like not even burying the lead anymore. This past year, Ian went from not having gone past that to finishing 2 100-mile races and extremely difficult 100 milers, not like Tunnel Hill or things like that. So anyway, it's been a continuation of his athletic journey in a leap and a bound, and he's kind of just arrived to this point where ultras are just very doable for him. And I think currently you're saying like you just feel bulletproof through 100K. And this
Mhm.
is 100K used to be your goal at World's Toughest. So there's just been a leap forward, and it's been done in a skill set that I think you would self-describe as like not world class or like inherently special. And that sounds rude and I don't mean it that way, but like you're
No.
an everyman athlete who gets more out of your fitness than most people I know. And especially for an ultra distance. And I want to talk through how you've gotten here and how these races specifically went because they were fights. They weren't gimme races.
Oh, no, they certainly weren't.
So that's a really long intro, Kirk, but that's all the things I'm thinking of why Ian's needed to be heard by people today because he is doing extraordinary things with a skill set that a lot of people could say, well, I don't think that's out of my realm of possibility then. But
Ian
he's
Bracken
beating
has said
people
to me, m-
who would say I'm more talented than him, but he's beating them in these hundreds.
Ian Bracken has said to me multiple times that like you get, he says, Ian, I don't even really ask. Ian gets more out of his fitness than anybody that I know. You've said that sentence to me multiple times. Have you not, Bracken?
Yeah, I usually say like, "Oh, Ian outkicked his coverage again."
He, he, yep. He squeezes all the juice out of that lemon somehow. And so I think that wasn't like a car pun or anything. Um, so I've heard this before from him multiple times. I think just for perspective for the listeners, because I don't know off the top of my head, but you might. So this time gap between 65 miles at World's Toughest, I believe we talked to you just before or just after that last
Mhm.
performance that we're referring to. Oh, how long has it been since then to now progressing to finishing 2 100 milers with conviction? How long has that been? What, 2 years ago did we talk?
I believe
Two and a
so.
half, maybe.
Yeah, so I think the year I did 65 was two World's Toughest Mudders ago. Um, I did because that was in Florida, like the Florida Alabama one, that weird like on the border one. Um, then the next year I was in Texas for it and just wasn't into it. Like I from the gun did not want to be there at all, but I had signed up and so I was there. And I only did 55 miles there. So like I hit a point where I did more math in my head than I wanted to, and realized like I wasn't gonna break 65. I wasn't gonna hit 75, and like went and took a nap. Like I kind of just gave up on that one. And I ran into DJ Fox there as well, and he super encouraging. Like he's like one of the nicest dudes I've met in the sport. And yeah, even that wasn't like good enough to really want me to make me want to get back out and keep doing more mileage to like not hit the goal I wanted. So I took the year off after that, kind of thinking I was going to go back. Um, but I ended up running the Leadville 50 here at Silver Rush 50 that year, last year, 23. It's a weird time right now. And then last year, I ran the 50 again. I ran the Leadville 100, and then I ran Javelina 100. So those were, I think, my biggest races that year.
Yeah.
And they, yeah, like Bracken said, neither of those were kind of gimme races. Those hundreds, like The Leadville 100 I finished with 20 something minutes to spare. Like,
Oof.
yeah, like hard, rough, like, and I got to that point where like I brain didn't work, body didn't want to go, and all I could do was like kind of nod my head and try and hang on to the heels of my pacer. And then in at Javelina, flatter, arguably faster. I got it done in like 27-ish miles. But I mean, I talked to Brakken during that one, and yeah, just like it was hard getting the motivation to get up and go after 80 miles, you know. So, but they both got them done, I guess.
So I want to set the stage by describing your first one, and that is the Leadville 100. So
Yeah,
brief stats on the course. The course starts technically where?
it starts in the middle of town at the one stop light,
At what
um,
elevation?
10,200.
And what does it peak at?
13 something. That's Hope Pass.
And what's the lowest point it hits?
995.
And I think 9.5, right around there, is the highest any OCR course in the United States has ever hit. Just to put in perspective for some of our listeners. And if you think about going
What
out
would
to train in
Breckenridge? What would even come close?
Big Bear, I think,
Does Big Bear get that high?
in
Huh.
top of Tahoe, maybe.
Breckenridge is pretty high. Yeah, it's
Breckenridge
like
is
nine
high.
something. Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay.
like when people think about Colorado racing, any of our OCR listeners, they've touched the bottom of this course. You think about running up Pikes Peak. Well, it stops at 14. And once you get it above tree line, about 12, people get into trouble. And that's where they get
Mm-hmm.
airlifted down from. Well, this whole course for 100 miles doesn't really get much below the point where people start to struggle, really struggle at altitude. And
Mm-hmm.
what is it? 20, is it 22,000 feet of gain?
I think it was only like 18. Like
18,000. We'll call it 20,000 feet of
with
gain.
sure, why not?
All of it above 10,000 feet. So it's just a really difficult race. And on top of that, it's very exposed. You're above tree
Mm-hmm.
line for most of the race. In Colorado, has greenery, but when it's not, you're just on the surface of the moon. So you're out
Yeah.
there for over a day straight, above altitude, above 10,000 feet pretty much for over a day straight, and you're exposed to
Mm-hmm.
the sun and the wind for over a day straight. So in terms of jumping into your first 100 mile, this is not a gimme.
No, it was arguably very stupid, which is kind of why I did
And
it.
the time cutoff isn't a generous time cutoff. Like there's a reason
No.
the belt buckle for finishing is so sought after, is because it's an earned buckle.
Do you think I have an athlete who is attempting or will be attempting to complete the mountain bike and run of Leadville? Are
Mm.
you familiar? It has a name.
Is that is that they're doing the hundreds or the
The
50s?
hundreds. Yeah, but he can't get into it until he does the bike first. So this year, and I think it happens the weekend
Yeah,
before or the week in the
yeah,
beginning.
it's a week before.
Anyways, so this is out of my wheelhouse, but we went to get him ready for the mountain bike. So,
Yeah.
Jay, you know who you are. We got him ready for a mountain bike race at that altitude. He lives in Michigan with no
Ooh.
hills or no nothing, right?
Mhm.
And so the idea is, and he completed it. He said it was one of the worst things he's ever done. And I was on the bike, mostly skill related, saying like the downhills are like something you can't even comprehend until you have familiarity with that terrain. But anyways, his idea here, and Jay, I'm putting you up here, is to then do the combo deal. And there's also a marathon or so I think you have to do all three.
If it's the lead challenge,
Yes, it's the lead
uh,
challenge.
so that is the marathon, both 50s, so the bike and run, the 10K, and then either the bike or run 100.
Okay, well, I think this is a long way to get at my question, but considering the altitude, I know he will be doing the bike and the 100, and then maybe something else as part of this. But knowing that elevation was stupid for you, in your own words,
Yeah.
and you live there, how
Uh-huh.
stupid is Jay living at 300 feet above sea level? Is that almost an impossible task for somebody who lives where Bracken and I do to go think that we can even survive something like that? Walk me through that.
I mean, it is stupid. Like, let's call it what it is. But also, like, that's like the thing though. That, like, that's what we're chasing, right? Is to do things we don't think we could have done. Um, so like that's just like a big middle finger to like what should be possible, which is the whole point, at least for me, you know. And I live here, so I
Hmm.
think that'd be super cool if he came and just crushed it.
Is there extra medical personnel availability at an event like this?
Oh yeah, oh
Talk to
yeah.
me through that.
Every medical responder in the county, and plus some neighboring counties, is kind of just on call and available, either like waiting at aid stations or just around the course. Um, the bike is pretty notorious for some pretty like bad crashes. So yeah, definitely take care on the downhills. But yeah, we've got paramedics almost at every aid station. Uh, the start slash finish line, because they're all out and backs. Um, those are pretty well staffed. The hospital is a couple blocks away. The fire department's a couple blocks away. It's like we're all like sitting waiting for the next one. Like, we're not doing anything else that day.
It reminds me of Bracken. I had to go visit an athlete, Darla, who we've had on this podcast after the Spartan Race World Champs one year, and she was in the hospital with hypothermia outside of Tahoe. And I went there to just make sure she was all right and pay her a visit. And it was like that whole hospital was full of Spartan Race idiots. There was hundreds of people there. The place was chock full. She was stuck in a little curtain room because like they were just what it was, and that's Tahoe. So I'm just
Hmm.
thinking Leadville has to be like, you guys, the alarm goes off that morning and the medical professionals have to be like, there's a lot of unprepared people here. It's going to be a long day, guys. Is that about it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm.
I mean, the start finish line looks like a bomb went off. It's like there's clothes everywhere. People are just lying down in the street. You kind of just like, well, you good? Are you okay? Just kind of just like mass triaging people.
Have you ever experienced altitude sickness in its truest form, either of you? Like to the
No.
point where you knew something was off?
I think I got sick in Big Bear. That's all I can think of.
So one place I think I got it too. Yeah.
Closest I got was Tahoe, and I couldn't tell if that was pre-hypothermia or a bit of altitude or both. It was at the top of the mountain. I couldn't stop dry heaving and like shaking uncontrollably, and it was,
Hmm.
but I don't know which one that was.
Hmm. Yeah, I think my one experience was just laying in bed and the heart is at 100 beats a minute and you're also nauseous and there's a little bit of a headache, right? And you get through it. It was after the event had been done, so whatever, I guess, but I think
Yeah.
it's got to be a pretty serious concern for people out there.
Well, and that's just to kind of like set the stage a little bit more for being here. That's what baseline feels like the first 6 9 months of living here. Like, it's hard to get to sleep. Your heart rate's elevated all the time. You've got like a kind of a constant low grade headache. Um, it's just harder to breathe, you know. So like you just kind of deal with that, and that's just being alive.
So that's what he was training with to get ready for this. Now he'd been there a little longer since by the time he got ready for this, but so we're
Yeah,
doing the grindy work, the time on feet in the mountains, but you just don't know what's going to happen on race day. And from my perspective, I'll let Ian take over and tell the story. But the way this race went was that we had a pretty, I say we, but Ian had a very, like a pretty dialed in plan. He had what shoes he was going to use and when, and what signs he was going to look for when he was switching shoes, and he had his fueling, and he had pacer strategy and time cutoff. The way you do for 100, he had it all figured out. And I'm tracking him, and I wake up a few times throughout the night and I check where he's at, and he's on pace for goal finish, on pace for goal finish. And then it just, as it does, it starts to slip and slip and slip. And then he gets to somewhere around 80. I don't know if it's 78 or whatever it is. And
Yeah, probably around there.
And it's to the point where he's off pace enough that the only way to finish is to average faster per mile for the last, 20, 22, than he'd average for the previous 2 or 3 hours. So you're 80 miles in and you have to go from 80 to 100 faster than you went from 60 to 80. And at that point, I just went to sleep. Like, I'd been in and out, but I thought, this sucks. Like, I sent you a message that I knew you couldn't get. And then
Oh yeah, no.
I went to sleep, and I woke up and Ian had finished. Just like, it blew my mind, the idea of, in quote, kicking in from 80 miles out, because the only training experience I have above 10,000 feet is running 12 and 14ers in Colorado. And when you get above that point, it's summit and get back down. And so it's like whatever happens to just survive during like Pikes Peak from 12 to 14. And then I get to descend back under and then recover once I get down. So it was like putting your hand in the flame, knowing no matter how bad it is, I just have to do it intensely for a little bit and then I'm good. There is no concept of, all right, I have 20 more miles at this altitude and it's not getting better. And now I have to turn it up a notch. I've never been able to do that myself. And knowing that 80 miles in, he had made the decision to force his body to do that. It was one of like the most impressive things I've ever woken up to on my phone, was seeing that Ian Floyd finished.
It didn't feel good.
So
do you care to elaborate on any of this, Ian?
So I think I want to hear about the return trip. I think the audience should hear the return trip and what that's like, because everyone can run the first 50 of 100.
Yeah.
If you're trained.
Easy. That's the easy part. Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, it's an out and back course. The turnaround is on the other side of Hope Pass, which is a 3,000 foot climb, and then descent. And it's like 4 or 5 miles out to that aid station, then the turnaround, and you come back and you do that climb and descent again. So that second time coming up the pass, I couldn't go any faster. Like loose dirt rock, and all I could do was kind of like dig my poles into the ground and pull myself further up. So it kind of felt like I was just like ice climbing the entire time.
Why is that all you could do? Explain it more
I
detail.
was just
Physically.
dead. Like I couldn't.
So you're 54 miles in, and how long is this at this point?
Sorry, like how long is this
time on feet so far?
Oh, I was still doing pretty well by then, but I can't. This, God, it must have been around 12 to 14 hours in. But I think someone clocked it who was near me the entire time during the climb, that we were moving at about 1 mile an hour. So
when you say physically, like you were ice climbing because your legs had no power left, your feet hurt, your tummy ache, what was it? That's what I'm getting at.
No, yeah, okay. Yeah, so it was definitely just no power.
Fatigue. You had started to, your battery was getting low.
Exactly.
Okay.
So so I got back to the top, hit that checkpoint, and then I like sat at the aid station for a couple minutes and just ate as much food as they would give me, and hung out by a llama. That was really cool. And then started the descent down, and by that time the sun was setting and I did not have a headlamp, So I used my phone light to get all the way down and back into Twin Lakes aid station. Um, and that there is about the 100K mark. Um, from there, I picked up my pacer, and I got some energy back because I saw like all my friends and family who were there. There was just like that aid station is crazy. It's like one of the most nuts like race areas I've ever seen in my life.
So backing
Um,
up a little bit, the sun's starting to go down, but because the climb took twice as long as you thought, you
mhm.
hadn't packed a headlamp
Yep.
for this checkpoint. So what happened with the phone descending down? How did that limit you? It's a
Kind of.
3,000-foot drop in the mountains.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of just had to send it at that point. Like the faster I got down, the less I had to rely on this tiny little light on my phone to light the way.
Mhm.
So it was mostly just like I'm like pretty good at descending even when tired. So that was just what I had to do, and I was like passing people on the way down, and it's pretty rocky and rooty on the way down. So like I was mostly just kind of flying high on the fact that I hadn't fallen down.
Well, and just like to put it in perspective, do you know what lumens your headlamp is or in waist lamp?
I was gonna use the waist lamp, and it's that Ultra Spire.
It's either 650 or 800.
I think it's the 650.
Do you know what an iPhone lumen is on a cell phone?
Not even
It's
30.
40 to 50.
Yeah.
so
sick.
so you were about 620 lumens shy of your 650 goal of being able to
Yeah,
see running down a rocky 3,000-foot descent.
I've never claimed to be a smart guy. Never.
Just, I mean, we see a cell phone at night, like in our house, you use it and it lights up what you need to see, and you're like, oh, that'd be fine descending with.
Yeah,
No, it's
exactly.
not. It's 600 lumens shy of what you want.
I bet
Yeah,
you though, how much of that was in the pitch black versus twilight versus sunset?
half of it.
Was
Yeah.
okay. So the almost
When I got really back into the trees.
But it's
Hmm.
also worse in twilight than pitch black
Yeah.
because that light
Like
doesn't cut into the twilight at all.
no, and
I
like I could
disagree with
see
that statement.
maybe
Okay. I one time got stranded
it
on my
worked.
bike
The
without
light
a light.
the
and I
light
used
from the sun is brighter than the light from your flashlight, so that's why running at twilight's bad. 'Cause the flashlight light isn't brighter than the natural light. You know what
True.
I'm saying?
But it doesn't cut into the shadows of a rock.
No, that's fair. That is fair.
Either
All
way,
right.
it's not ideal.
It's so
No.
bright outside, I can't even see my flashlight.
I tried to team up with a guy who had a headlamp, and he was just going too slow, and I had to get back to Twin Lakes. So I just broke away and used my phone.
But it also
What's it?
means you can't use your poles
No. Yeah.
effectively.
No. I put my poles away for that. There was no pole use during the descent.
What's interesting about something like that, let's call it a bonk, your first bonk in the race, right? Going up, you bonk.
Absolutely.
Systems aren't working. You can't generate power. You're pretty, let's call it deflated. And then to turn around and then sort of get new life shot into you a little bit, gravity helps, right? But
Hmm.
my experience is, and maybe you're more bulletproof than I am, I'm sure you are, is when I get to a certain distance or time on feet, I dread the downhills because of the pain, not the physical exertion, but the hips and the ankles and the feet. At some point, it turns a corner where I see the next uphill and I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank
Hmm.
God for the hill that I get to go up because it's not taking a pounding. So you obviously have good resiliency because I imagine me being 60 miles or more into a race, I would be dreading that downhill because of the physical pain, not the exertion. You didn't experience that?
That not
Man?
there.
Okay.
That was, and I know that now that's kind of like it wasn't a body thing. It was an energy thing because I felt the body thing later on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get back, you're down there, you finally made it in one piece.
Oh yeah.
How far is the Twin Lakes aid station?
From Hope Pass or to the next one?
Total distance you've covered at that point.
Oh, that's 100K, like 62
Okay.
something. Yeah.
So 38 miles to go. You've ran out of power now, but you get a little juice from seeing your crew. You get to pick up a
Mm-hmm.
headlamp
Get to
and a
pick up a
pacer.
headlamp. Yep, I got to tape up my feet from to stop some blisters that were starting.
And you're 3 miles away
Um,
from the furthest distance you've ever run.
Correct. And about to hit the or going into like the longest time wise I've ever run too. You know, like I can't remember where we were exactly when we crossed that 25-hour mark, but that was creeping up.
Mm-hmm.
So
What's the
got
time cutoff overall?
30 hours,
30 flat.
30 flat. Yeah, so like they you'd think like an out and back race is pretty like it's up and then down, but they somehow got it to be down then up. Like you're climbing, it feels a lot more on the way back. And they always say like, oh, once you make it back to Twin Lakes, like the race is over, like you just coast in, and that's not at all true. Like if anyone ever says that, it's a lie. There's quite a few really harsh climbs just coming out of Twin Lakes, and then going back up. There's a section called Power Line, and that climb is like really where I like energy ran low again, but then also like that's where I could feel like my hips were going, my quads were really starting to like just they just were done. Um, and that was another like using my poles to literally like ice pick my way up. Um, and that's a couple miles away from the last aid station, which was 13 miles from the finish. So I'd say it's like maybe 18 miles away. It was where that climb was. And you're just so close. And there on the way out there's nothing at the top of that climb, but on the way back they set up this like kind of like guerrilla style aid station. It's just people who aren't really affiliated with the race, but they set up this big, they call it space camp, and it's tents and lights and like there's alien stuff everywhere, and like they're just like throwing candy at people. But by the time I had gotten there, they just had no, like they were just like pushing people out as fast as possible because they couldn't stay. If they had stayed there, they wouldn't have hit the next checkpoint.
Well, and we're starting to hear ultra logic come into this, where you're like, you're so
Mm-hmm.
like 18 miles to go, then 13, you're so close, but only in the scope of 100. If you sent
Yeah.
someone out for an 18-mile run with 5,000 feet of vert or whatever at 11,000 feet of altitude, elevation, that is a long, arduous task, and you're trashed when you get done. So you're close, but you still have a long run. Like your weekly
Mm-hmm.
long run is still ahead of you. And that's
Yeah.
that's hard to fathom in the moment. How could I pick it up now and cut time off because I'm not on pace to finish anymore?
Yeah. And like that thing that I do when I get overworked, where I only want like cold stuff, really started to come into play, and I just kept drinking out of streams in the mountains because they were like ice cold water. Like, and that's all I could think about or want to do. So like the only way to get me to move more was like knowing that there was more of that coming. So it's like weird things that like your mind and body want you to do that don't really make any sense.
There's no risk of it. Well, I'm sure there's a risk, but illness with the stream water up that high.
I mean there is, but that high, like there's not a lot that can live up there.
There's not a lot of bears shitting in the stream upstream from
Not
where
at
you're at.
like yeah, not at like 12,000 feet.
Yeah, not so many.
Yeah.
So you
So
had
how did you Brakken?
he had a conversation with his pacer when you realized your time, and how did that go?
It was a conversation to me. He said, we have to run and like we have to average 17-minute miles in order to finish. And that was like, it was just like, I don't know if I can do that. Like any given time and any given day, a 17-minute mile is laughable for everybody, right? But like at that moment, I was like, I don't know if I can do that. Like I physically don't know. And I couldn't even have that argument with him because I could only kind of grunt and then shake my head yes or no. Like that. I just had no faculty left.
So how did you
So
do it?
that's the only option I had. Like he said, we're gonna finish it, and you have to stay like close to me. Every time I'm running, you're running. So and he just, to his credit, like he got me there, but he like shoved salt pills down my throat and forced me to drink water and eat like every 30 minutes. And then, yeah, it was just like constantly just like kind of yelling at me to get closer to him as we're running. And at one point, we had picked up a train of people. There were like 6 or 8 people behind us that I had no clue were there. But he told me this later on that like we had been running fast enough that like other people tried to hang on to us. And then by the time we got back around Turquoise Lake and into the last 10 miles of the race, um, we were like we had banked time. Like we came back into the positive by like an hour, and then like I convinced him to like let me have more breaks, But it was like it was wild to like
Do you
all I could
remember
do.
any of it?
Yeah, I remember all of it. Like, but it's like remembering a dream where, like how in a dream, like you try to like throw a punch and it feels like you're moving underwater, or like you can't really explain why your body's doing the things it's doing, but you're there for it. Like you're watching it happen, and that's kind of how it feels now when I think about it. Is like I could have done all of that, but I can't. It's hard to like think about that. I was in such a bad place that I couldn't run like 17-minute miles on my own.
I can't imagine. Okay, uh, how many people out there race 100 miles? Feel like they're racing? Very few, I would imagine. It's
I
more
would,
of a
yeah,
survival, right?
yeah.
Like when you're racing it. I don't know how much. Do you think anybody races 100 miles? Like truly races it?
A lot of
The
them
best of the
set out
best?
to do that, but you get to a
Yeah.
point where that option's gone.
Yeah, so to have that option be gone, but then sort of you have to again, right? Like, did you like when you were pressing in that stretch? Did you feel like you were racing, like surging to get attached again, like pressing your physical limits in the sense where I might get dropped? Like, did you have to go into race mode? And I hope that question makes sense. But
It does. Yeah, I mean, it did. Like, it felt like an ultimatum. Where it was like, either I have run over 90 miles at this point. Run is very loose, but like either I've moved 90 miles for nothing, or like I just kind of put my head down and work for these last 10 miles, and that all pays off. I've become a finisher of this like really prestigious, hard to do race, and then I can go to sleep for an entire day. So that was kind of where it got to.
Those
Oh,
are those
someone's going to
points
work.
where you learn what you didn't know. And some people do not push the button again once they know it's already been pushed. They just
Mm-hmm.
refuse to even try that last bit because they know they can't. And of all the things you did that year, I was most proud that you tried when he said, "We need to average 17-minute miles. You need to stay on me." Every good pacer does that to every struggling runner,
Yeah,
but it doesn't work unless that person tries. And the weight of that effort is almost unfathomable at that time. And that was the thing I was most proud of. The fact that you just 88 miles in said, "All right, I'll try it again."
yeah,
It's just such a long time. Like we've all pulled an all-nighter and tried to focus on our laptop screen the next day, or read our phone, or go grocery shopping. We all know what that fatigue feels like. And now you pair that with 88 miles of movement. It's just,
Yeah.
there's no gimme in that whatsoever.
Yeah. It's and it's fun because it's funny to think about now because like right at the end too, we were catching people. We were catching and passing people, and that was like another motivator. It's like, hey, that person passed you 4 hours ago, and you're about to catch and pass them. So, like, it's like great, let's do it, you know. And then we get back to so the last 5Ks straight uphill. And it's not a crazy uphill, but it is uphill after 97 miles. But you come back up 6th Street, which is the main road in town, all the way up to the light, which is where the finish is. And it's just lined with people. Like there's so many people who are still walking in to finish, and all the spectators and all like the families and stuff. And that's when anyone can jump in and run with you across the finish line. But I just remember like the guys from the station were there waiting for me to cross. My family was there. Everyone from my crew was there, and like I just all like surged to the last 100 meters and like ran probably faster than I did the entire race right there at the end. And that was like kind of worth it to me, was like to be able to do that right at the end, which is weird.
It was there. Why do you think it's there? What do you think that
I
like like you can't even understand it probably.
No, and I've never I still think about it, and I can't tell you why I could run faster then than I could at any point in the race, or wanted to at least.
Yeah. So and you finished with how much time to spare again? How many minutes?
Like 20 something.
So how
Like
many finished under the time cap and how many got pulled? Do you know how many lose the battle?
I briefly talked to Matt B. Davis after the race actually, and he told me that the race had almost a 50% DNF rate.
Hmm.
So
DNF, whether you're dropping out or not making the time cut.
yeah, and there were still people who crossed the line just with like seconds after the time cut off. You know?
Ugh.
Yeah.
That doesn't take away from finishing it though in my eyes. It's just you're not on the results, I
Yeah,
suppose.
exactly. Like you
Hmm.
don't get the belt buckle because you can finish the race and not be an under 30-hour finisher, depending upon like gun time
Hmm.
and chip time.
You must be looking up stats there, Bracken. That's what
Uh,
you do.
yeah, your finish time was 29:37, 24.
Yeah. See. Yeah.
So 22 and a half minutes you made it by over the course of
Hmm.
100 miles.
That's that's like breaking 15 in the 5K by 1 second. Not even half a second, quarter of a second,
Right. Yeah.
quarter of a second.
Yeah.
If you extrapolate it, I feel like. So why then? Why were you able to rally? Why did you pull it together? What is it about you, your training, your mindset, the whole thing? You're just dumb enough to keep moving forward. It's not that simple, is it?
It kind of is. Um, at
Where
least
does your mind go? All those things.
I don't know. It's I seem to be having the same conversation with myself when it gets to these like weird dark places where it's just like, well, I've come this far, so why? Like, what was the point if I stop now? Like when like all I want to do is stop moving, and now it's like, well, I've already gone this far. I can't. It would be such a waste of time and energy to have gotten this far just to say, I'm done. You know, like I want to be the guy that like is forcibly pulled off the course if that's what it takes. Like in World's Toughest, I wanted to be the guy who was like still running for his life, right? At the 25 and a half hour mark, somewhere on course. Um, it's I don't know. It's just what seems worth it to me. You know.
What about the self-care, fueling, all of that? What do you think you did right, and what would you do differently?
um, I think I don't know. There's always like a grand plan going into these as far as fueling goes, and that goes out the window almost immediately. Always does. Um, Unless you've got like a really dialed group of people to like make you do it. But
To preface this, Ian's version of race brain is that he stops eating
yeah,
before his stomach goes.
Hmm.
Like some people forget about pacing correctly. Ian does a good job marshaling his energy. It's fueling is the first thing that like logic fails him in terms of fueling early.
yeah. Like when calories get depleted, like it shuts that part of my brain off or something. I don't like it's hard, and then I don't want to do it anymore. Um, but yeah, it's always going to be a fueling thing for me. I think. Like I think I'm getting past the point where like I don't cramp in these races anymore. Um, I don't get very large like muscle fatigue really. Like I can feel my hips, I can feel my quads, but nothing like that is like too bad. It's fueling. It's just like straight up energy. So, and we're like Bracken and I talked about this last week during our coaching call, but like that was um, something we want, or like I want to tackle a little bit more systematically. Like really dial in numbers and hit markers like on the half hour or on the hour. So that'll be something I'm looking to do.
I don't know how many people out there in the ultra space, it can be a little different, but um, I never want to eat when I'm out running or racing. It's always inconvenient. It always seems
Mm-hmm.
like such a hassle. And I don't want it. If it doesn't include water to hydrate me when I'm thirsty, I've never wanted food once. And my longest efforts have been 5 hours, not 24. But like even then, it's still like repulsive, let's say. Do you struggle with that where you're just like, I just don't wanna. I don't want. I'm not hungry.
I mean, yeah. There's a part of me that knows I need to until a certain point, and then yeah, I get to that where I only want ice cold water or nothing. You know, like it's weird. Like I can't really explain like the 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 way I'm thinking about it at that moment. It's like nothing sounds good. I don't really want to chew. Like it's like at that point, like I've been running at like the same kind of uh like pattern or almost that like my mouth has been just like my jaw has just gone so slack over like 12 hours that like I don't want to do anything with it now. Like it hurts to move it. It's weird. Like it I don't know how to explain it.
So all of this combined, Kirk, you can imagine my surprise when he tells me I want to run the Javelina 100 and I want to break 24 hours for a 100-mile race. And the predictions are that it's going to be really hot. Because
And it was.
if you have a fueling problem in the moderate temperature, you're going to have a bigger fueling problem when it's hot. No one's stomach ever got better when it got above 80 degrees or 90 degrees. And if all you want is cold water when you get really tired, running in the desert in 90 degrees, there's not a lot of ice cold water around. So that's what he chose for his next race after Leadville was to go run in the desert in what turned out to be the hottest year ever for this race.
Isn't the time what Leadville is what, July, June? July?
Yeah, like late July,
And Javelina's in October?
October. Yeah,
So you're
it's
going from
typical.
100 to 100 with 4 months in between, maybe not even 3 months. 3 to
What
4.
could go wrong?
No, no. Well, hey, I mean, the course feels a little more approachable. You got less altitude,
Yeah.
which is a start, and
A
less
month and 10
elevation.
days. Month and
Wait,
9 days is what it was.
a
Or 2
what?
months, sorry, 2 months and
I was
9
gonna
days.
say 2 months, and I knew the window's tight because I had an
Yep.
athlete running Javelina last year in the 100K who's coming back for the 100 mile this year. So
Mhm.
you're gonna have to throw some pointers out there. But um, so what happened? What happened there then? How did your recovery go? Actually, this is a great talking point. 9 weeks
Hmm.
to go from 100 that took your soul to another 100. 9 weeks later, what does that look like? The in between time for you?
You're gonna love this.
Okay.
The
Stupid.
next, it's really dumb. The next day, I like just as like a get my body moving again, start the recovery process. I just kind of like took a walk around the neighborhood. I walked a couple blocks down to the fire station to pick up some mail that I had. Came back up, and then 3 days later, I ran 4 miles. It really slow. The next day, I ran about 6 miles at a kind of moderate pace, and then the day after, I raced a 25K, and I took 11th place, but I was running in fifth for the first 8 miles, and then shut it down.
Which is,
7
I
days
think, his
later,
best
6 days
short
later.
distance race performance
It
ever.
was really good, actually.
6 days later, then I guess, really, from when you finished?
Yeah,
Like
basically.
Saturday to Saturday, but you finished on a Sunday night or whatever it was,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yep. Basically, yeah.
and you felt okay?
Yeah, I felt good enough that I thought I could at least run 25K. But then I accidentally was standing too close to the front of the corral when the gun went off. So I just was just like in the lead pack for a while, and I just hung out there for a bit until I just decided to shut it down because it wasn't. It's like I don't need to run this hard right now.
Why'd you need to do that at all?
I don't know. I don't know. I was like I got caught up in it for a
I'm trying to think if, like, somebody I was working with was like, "Well, here's my plan."
Mhm.
minute.
I can't imagine Bracken was like, "Good idea, buddy. Let's really go all in on this."
It was a
Did
weird
you
conversation. He was like, "Hey, so what if I told you that I was gonna run a 25K on Saturday?" Like, I'd say probably not to. That's what I'd say.
Don't.
He said, "Well, I just go run it. Like I wanna go for a run and there's things here and I'll just run as I feel and I'll stop if I need to stop." It's like, "Okay." Then he gets back, he's like, "Hey, I ran in like top 5 for the first bit and then I shut it down." It's like, I don't know. We're not the same. We're not compatible, Ian.
So now you have
uh,
8 weeks, okay? What happens after that? Like, how do you I mean, obviously, Bracken, I could ask you because you write the programming, but just curious. It's a tight time window. I've dealt with it myself with people.
mhm,
Did you end up taking any more downtime? Like true
no.
downtime? So you didn't take like a full, you took 3 days off of running in a row.
Yes.
And you haven't gotten injured in here. You haven't felt like you were dragging all the time, like your body ended up coming back.
Actually, yeah, it did. Surprisingly enough, and that's been something that historically has been good for me is like the recovery time. I seem to be able to bounce back, which makes me think I'm not doing enough in the race. That I can. That's probably the main reason why I'm like, okay, I can go do this dumber, harder
Kirk, I have his training plan pulled up in front of me here.
thing.
In the week after that, after the race, the only thing I programmed were 2 strength workouts.
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday, he has it labeled surprise 25K. And then I didn't program again anything after that. And then 2 strength workouts. And then it was let's test out running. And he ran 30 to 40 minutes and then 30 to 40. And then we did a 3 by 12 minute tempo to kind of put him in his place. Like the rep 2 was going to come around and it would remind him the rules. And it didn't. And so 4 days later, he did 1, 2, 3 fartlek times 3, and 2 days later, he did a 3-hour long run with 8 by 400 meters in the middle, and then he did a leg builder, and then he did 3 by 15-minute tempo, and then 1, 2, 3 fartlek, and then 2 by the Leadville climb plus descent. This is all within a month of that 100. He just was able to deload slightly and then get back into training. And volume was a little lower, but not
Mhm.
a ton. It just when I said before it was stupid what he did in between the two, it was like it doesn't track. I didn't support it, but he kept saying like I'm doing fine, so I kept programming it.
So like traditionally 2 weeks, you were going to give him 2 weeks with let's just focus on strength and don't worry about aerobic work, and then
Yep.
we will ramp things back up, which I would have to agree with.
Mhm.
Um, you give or take the 2 weeks, but nonetheless, like that's exactly how I program. Hey, we can do strength this week, but let's stay off the feet and the legs, no running. Anyway, so you defy your coach, which is there's athlete intuition, and then you progress through your training. Your body feels available to you, and you show up at Javelina. Then what happens?
Um, it was a faster 100 mile than
Yes,
the
it is.
last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, so that race is like so drastically different from Leadville that it was almost just like a new like brand new slate, like almost like I'd never run the distance before. Um, so the entire strategy was to stay wet and cold the entire time, and I got to the fourth lap, which they're about 20-mile laps. Um, and I remember calling Brakken at one point, and it's like, hey, like I don't feel awesome anymore. Surprise. And we talked for a while, and I was able to keep my pace going through that phone call, and it's kind of slowed it down a little bit more at the end of that lap, and then got it done with my pacer at the end. But it was that was way more of like a okay, get onto like a metronome type of running and just hold on to that than anything else that I've ever done. Like it was so like it, world's toughest feels repetitive, but that course going around 5 times feels super repetitive. It's like there's that rock, there's that tree, there's the burn scar. So,
And did you
but
achieve your goal?
no, I was I was over by a couple hours on 24 hours. But no, having done it once, I'm really confident I can go back and get there around 24 hours. So
What
I'm
was
already signed up.
what was the high temperature that day?
99.
99. So we prepped way more for Leadville, but we
Mm-hmm.
strategized more specifically for Javelina because
Oh yeah.
what do you do with 99 in the desert for 100 miles? Like a dry heat is nice, except that just leaves a lot of salt on your skin. And then you chafe for 100 miles. Like there's no good way around 99 degrees, and the dry heat has its own. So much. He had such a specific plan on frozen water bottles and keeping his top soaked at all times and making sure that salt doesn't build up. That was a big point of emphasis that he brought into it. But like it was another one of those like there's no gimme. We've all gone for a run when it's hot. We all know what
Mm-hmm.
99 degrees feels like. Like what do you do for 100 miles? Even if only 6 of the hours are in 99-degree heat. Most of us would say it's not smart to go for my 2-hour long run in 99-degree heat. There's just like there's no logic to the thing he's doing. And what I learned, like it cemented to me in my mind what I believe about Ian as an athlete that day when he called me. And I've said it on here before, but anyone who runs a long ultra, I always tell beforehand, call me day or night if you need to. Sometimes that's all it takes. And it's like no skin off my teeth. I'll fall back asleep afterwards. You're the one that's out there. But I only get 2 calls. I get the call, which is I've dropped out of the race or I missed the checkpoint, or I'm not saying it, but I'm asking for permission to drop out of the race. And Ian's call was the first call I've ever received where someone just kind of wanted to like nonchalantly vent about how bad it's going.
Hmm.
It wasn't even going bad. It was just miserable. But the whole time I'm listening and his voice was clear and his feet in the background were just like it just his cadence never broke. He just kept going and he was just talking about how it's been really hot. I'm not getting enough calories. I'm running out of energy. And I kind of asked, so like, so what now? He's like, oh, I'm going to get it done. And the adventurer was like, all right, talk to you later. And he's gone. It just, I've never had that happen where someone calls in the middle of a long race that's going south, but they're not calling to ask to quit. He was just announcing that it's not going great in the moment. And then he moved on.
Yeah, that was. I remember you answering the phone, and then like the first thing you said was, "Well, I can hear your feet moving, so I don't know what this call is about."
Yeah, it was very confusing to me. Your cadence sounded great.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's truly what it was. Like, I just needed to tell somebody, like, I'm not having the time of my life at this moment.
Mhm. But
So,
it was like very black and white because prior to these two races, the last time you had raced anywhere near 24 hours, you had decided I don't want to be here, and so I'm not really going to be. And then in
yeah,
both of these races, you got to the point where I don't want to do this anymore, but of course I'm going to get it done. And
yeah,
I still don't even really know why that changed, if it was just the correct motivation. But when I got the call at that time, which is what you'd identified, it's about 100K, it goes south for me. I didn't know why you didn't want to quit or why you weren't going to when you wanted to quit.
um, yeah. I mean, I really don't know. Like, it just doesn't seem like an option anymore. You know, not that it ever really is an option. Like, yes, it's an option. Like, it's something you can do, but like, I don't want that option. So whether I finish well or I finish just enough, like it's fine.
Do you remember what Bracken said to you on that call, or did he just listen?
Yeah, he kind of just let me ramble for a while about, um, yeah, like I'm not feeling good. These things are tightening up. I need to eat more, and I know that. But then he at one point said, there's a notch that you're at right now, and then there's that next notch up, and you just have to get to the in between that and hold that. Like he wasn't telling me I needed to get back up going to like race pace. It was just like do a little more than you're doing right now, and then see how that goes. And that carried me through that lap. You know, that was like okay, so like where I'm at right now is fine, but I could do a little bit more, and then I'll just see what happens.
Javelina is interesting. Well, all of these 100-mile ultras are interesting, but if I'm not mistaken, at Javelina, if you're going to have a pacer, they must be able to complete the entire lap with you.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of alone running. Not everybody has, let's say, enough pacers, depending on your crew,
Yeah,
to accompany you as even much as you're allowed in a race like that. Meaning these 20-mile loops, if you're going to pace me, you got to finish with me. Like you can't, if something goes wrong for you, that could potentially really set back my race, right? You roll your ankle, you can't keep up. So you have to have like even more confidence in your crew and your pacer, I feel like, in that. So it can just lead to like, I don't know. There's a lot of people that go there and there's no pacing. Like this is one of the races I feel like if you don't have a
yeah.
pacer, this is going to be one of those races. Um, did you find navigating that was interesting or any different for you or not really?
It was mostly just like I had a friend who said she could do the last lap, so I was all right, okay. Like, really, what I needed was someone to listen to me bitch and moan about like I'm tired and I'm like hot and I'm thirsty. Um, and then, but just like keep me moving towards the finish line. And
Because you
that
can
was
have
exactly,
Pacers last 2 laps in that 100, is that right?
yes.
2? Yeah. Would have been
Yeah.
nice. You could have chatted somebody else's ear off if they were next to you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And that definitely happened a little bit, but it was like, I don't know. There's something about like, I know this person way more. So like I can open up a little bit more about it. And like everyone else around me, I'm just going to try and be nice to, I guess. And like, we're all here just suffering and doing the thing. So,
Which race are you more proud of? Or are they equal?
they're equal but different. Um,
If you had to pick, Ian.
I'd probably go with Leadville still. Like, I don't plan on going back to that race for a while, but I I'm not naive enough to realize that like finishing that race on my first attempt is kind of a big deal for a lot of people. Um, so like I'm really proud of that belt buckle, and that being my first attempt at that race and my first 100-mile race. So like that's pretty cool, I think. You know, to knock out one of the five in the Grand Slam of ultra running as my first 100-mile race is I'm pretty proud of that.
And for context, just to help people understand, there's probably a few listening with some pretty crazy ideas, Leadville probably being one of them. There's probably
Mm-hmm.
many listening that's on their radar or even on their calendar. So you made it with 22 and a half minutes to spare,
Mm-hmm.
29 hours, 37 minutes and change. Because people want to know what's your 5K time and how does this equate? No, really, like how does people can understand, well, okay, well, Ian runs a 5K in this and he barely made it. That's how much of a task this is. So, and I
Mm-hmm.
know you're not training for that, right? But
Yeah.
let's say if you were, like what kind of top end does a person potentially need to even attempt this?
This kind of stuff is where I've like really realized that if your top end isn't actually good, like you're gonna fall apart soon, like
Mm-hmm.
early. Um, I mean, before all of this, like I think my fastest 5K was 18:36,
Okay.
which is a fun number for me because it's just doubles. Um,
Very happy for you.
yeah, exactly, right. So like not crazy, but like really happy to
Gosh,
break.
that's got to be about bang on 6 minute pace. What is that?
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
mean, like
close.
as bang on as you can get.
Yeah,
Like, is it 5:59 pace? Is it? Anyways, continue. That's right there.
I'm gonna say
yeah,
5:59 and a half.
Is that what you're gonna say? I'm just doing the math. I'm
5:59.5.
like, ooh,
I'm gonna pull
it's
it up.
close. Yeah, and like that's
okay.
like what I was shooting for is like if I can hit around 6 minute paces
Was
the
that
entire.
the one on the track with Chris?
No, that was a 3 mile,
Oh,
and that was
Well, I think just what I'm getting at, and top end is not everything, but it's important, right? Show me an ultra
mhm.
marathon champion, and the guys.
5:59.
Is it 5:59? Congratulations, sub six average. Okay,
Yes.
Never
5:59
in
and
doubt.
change, probably. Um, but it's just interesting. You think about these events, and here's an 18:35K runner. Granted, this is at altitude and all that, but 23 minutes away from missing a 30-hour cutoff, and your top
Hmm.
end is 18:30. It just goes to show, like, there are levels to ultra running, right? The cutoff at Javelina, I believe, is 30 hours as well, or
Yeah.
something like that. But
Hmm.
you can extrapolate that out to make it much more approachable race because there's more wiggle room based on the terrain. Granted, it wasn't
Hmm.
super hot. So point being, it's just like, what kind of person can show up and actually finish Leadville? It's just interesting. It's just interesting to think about, like, such an exclusive race by all standards, running 5:59 pace for a 5K is in the 1 percentile of people who put their running shoes on already. And then to extend that out past to 100 miles, it becomes a bigger feat than maybe some would realize. Like, you can't just walk 100 miles. You can't You need to
Mm.
put out effort with an engine that you've worked hard for in order to do that. So, um, I was curious about that. I'm also, Bracken, do you have some things you want to dive into with these races specifically? Because I have
Just
some big picture
a
questions.
few takeaways from what he's shown, but
Okay.
it doesn't have to be right now.
Yeah, it does. I want to ask about getting in ultra training, the nuances with being a firefighter and 24-hour shifts. I want to talk about just fitting it into life and that stuff to help anybody relate who isn't necessarily running Leadville. But we don't have to pivot now.
Well, I'm just going to give him a few compliments, even though we've done that too much already. But the first is that
It's been a
Leadville is
lot.
super impressive. And on paper, it's the most impressive thing that a debuting 100 miler can do is finish Leadville, probably. Like, I don't care about the rest of the Grand Slam. I think Leadville's harder than most of it. So, but Javelina, while an easier course, that's his equivalent of training in Michigan and going and running Leadville. Like, what is the
Sure.
longest flat run you did prior to Javelina?
I think I hit a 25-mile run,
Flat.
and it kind of flat. I don't know. There's really not that much flat
Yeah, you
around
can't
here.
find it. The longest flat
Yeah.
stretches he gets are probably downhills. Like in
Yeah.
terms of not climbing. The longest time he spends not climbing is descending. And so while just running a flatter, in quotes, race for 100 miles should be the easier race, it's the stride he's used the least. So getting through that is a testament to what he got through, but it also is a testament that grindy hill work can just cover a lot of the spectrum of racing. You can't do Leadville the way he did Javelina off Javelina training, but you can do Javelina the way he did Javelina off Leadville training. And I think that's important for people to remember. That was a convoluted way of saying it.
Well, I just had the conversation with Alec Blennis when him and I were doing some workout media stuff a couple of weeks ago, and he trained for a mountain marathon or 50K out. Oh gosh, I don't know, overseas somewhere, and it was a huge long event, and it had 5 or 6 or 7,000 feet of gain and loss, and then he comes back and runs Twin Cities Marathon, and him and his wife PR'd by like 45 minutes off of mountain training.
Hmm.
And he comes back, and it was a quick turnaround too. It wasn't like he didn't have months. And then he goes and PRs his road marathon when he had been focusing on vert. So backing up your point, I just heard another story about this, and
Mhm.
everybody that's listened for a long time knows that we agree. We agree with all of that, but it's just you hear it time and time again. Did you feel like that repetitive nature, because Javelina is so much flatter, that like very acute points ended up wearing out on you or breaking down, or no?
No. No, I mean it was just general fatigue in my like hips and legs.
Hmm. As will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we should talk about his training schedule. And on paper, 2 days on, 4 days off sounds really nice. But as anyone who knows a firefighter knows, everyone picks up a second job. So that is one part of this that if you just look at his schedule and it says shift work or not shift work, it looks way more free than it is. And then you're always dealing with sleep deprivation. So that just prefacing it with that.
So talk to me about it. So for example, we had Rylan Shadig on, and he's a firefighter or was a firefighter. I don't know if he's currently,
I don't think
maybe
he is anymore.
anymore, but he said, like, for example, if he's at the station and there are no emergencies, like they have access to facilities. And so he could sometimes get his stuff done indoors on the, stay tight to the station. Do you have that opportunity there?
Um, yes, for the most part, yes. We've got a pretty modest gym area in our bay, and then there's a treadmill up in the day room of the station. So we also try to keep a pretty tight schedule that if we're not running calls, we're training pretty much the entire day. And that's a lot of like the core firefighter skills, or just um, being around town and like looking at buildings and things like that. So like we're working on stuff pretty constantly throughout the day. So my free time comes after dinner usually, whenever that is. Like that's when we usually consider like business hours done and we can kind of relax until a call happens.
So do you often go 2 days in a row without being able to train, or are you able to squeeze something in most shifts?
Uh, there's a lot of times, yeah, I can't get like a focused training session in. That doesn't mean I don't like work out or get some kind of like inherent exercise done, but if it's not going to look like a 40-minute run um, or anything like that, it's going to be I'm wearing my full gear and we're going through movements that I'm going to have to do on a fire.
Hmm. Be an interesting thing to program through as a coach.
Brakken does a good job.
Ian's so easy to program for. He's he's basic in the best way possible. Like I just want to run some miles. I'd like to get some interval work in. I'd like to get a lot of hill work in, and I'll fit in strength training and stuff. Like don't worry about that. I'll fit that in. So I used to program it more like intensely, I guess we'd call it, where I had a prescription for his shift days as well. Like we were doing Wendler lifting for a while. So each shift day said Wendler plus, and it would either have incline hiking or an erg or an easy run or whatever. And I think it was 12 weeks out, Ian, from Leadville. We just stopped that. He was pretty upfront with me.
Yeah,
He's like, I can't guarantee anything during shift, but I can find
yeah,
time to get strength work done. So let's just put my strength work in on the week on the shift days. I'll fit that in. And if I get extra cardio, I'm going to get it in, but like fit my running into 4 days at a time. And so that's what we moved to at that point, where we'd have basically medium long quality, medium long quality. And then he'd go to shift for 48 hours. And that's where the strength would occur. So he had room to add in as much as he wanted of whatever he could handle. But we stopped over programming and overthinking and just saying like we're going to have our non-negotiable. These mountain runs have to get done, and shifts for lifting. Anything above that's a bonus.
yeah. It's been working out pretty well actually. Um, yeah, if I can grab 20 minutes and hop on a treadmill, I mean it's in the day room. Everyone else is there, so like I'm still like talking and participating and stuff. But it's just like I'm just plodding away. Um, so that's been super helpful also to not have like a thing in the back of my mind going like it's on the schedule, so I need to hit it.
Still, most would not consider this an ideal training circumstance by any means. And then I think about how heady we get with volume and mileage as endurance athletes. And I go, okay, well, if Ian's got 4 days and they're all in a row, I bet you your Strava isn't very impressive by ultra running standards. I bet
No.
you traditionally, if we're saying what should Ian be doing, or if he could do it all, and what is Ian doing, it would be less than ideal based on your schedule. But you managed to do it, right? And so I think
Mm-hmm.
like just to bring this to ground level for listeners, like how many miles a week are you hitting when you're in peak volume and where time on feet, however you want to look at it, like as a 100-mile athlete with a job like yours?
I think before Javelina, we were averaging like 45,
With a lot of vert in there, I assume. But
decent amount, yeah.
repeat that for people. So you're going to run a 100-mile race and pulling it off on 45 miles a week.
Yeah, there was a bigger week in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not crucifying you. I'm trying to inspire people and show them that with the right puppeteering and the consistency, even if it isn't perfect with your job,
hmm
it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's been the nice part is that all the running I do is it's in like kind of more manageable bite-sized pieces
Mm-hmm.
that like I can kind of worry about the specifics of them. and then I have the rest of my day to go about doing whatever. Now, recently we switched to doubling, so I do a smaller session later on in the day as well, just as an effort to kind of squeak more in, but it's still 90 minutes of my day total.
Yeah, I think there's two important takeaways with how he's training. The first is that we decided early on, and we've talked about it more as well lately, that he's not going to run 70-mile weeks, but if he can run 70 miles worth of a 4-day
Mhm.
week, he's going to
Yep.
get a lot of that benefit. He's not going to run 100-mile weeks, but so like his 4 days were pretty big days, but they don't show up on paper as a 7-day block like that.
And if you
Like,
can't spread them out, you do limit the amount of volume you can get on any particular day
yeah,
because there's not as many days between efforts,
right.
big efforts.
So, and we believed he embodies it that the second half of an ultra is as much decision as it is anything else. Like if you can tough yourself through it, you'll finish 100. But he's always like our conversation post Javelina is also the next step of that. Like it's cool to say he did it off 40-45, but the conversation was everyone else is running more than him and we need to run more. So even though like he's a poster child for doing 100 on 45 a week, his goal is also not to do it on 45 a week
Right,
moving
right.
forward. Like the second half is limited by your toughness until you want to go faster. And then it's
Mhm.
limited by aerobic capacity in your training hours.
Mm.
So like he's checked toughness. Like we know that. But his aerobic capacity and his training hours are lagging behind people that he's tougher than. So now that's like you said, he started doubling now.
I
And
can't keep losing to David Rush. I can't.
can't keep doing that. Although you beat Kunkel in Leadville.
I've beaten him every time.
I still think it's a great example of what can be done in unideal circumstances.
It is.
Wanting to out, this isn't like throwing stones. This is like throwing confetti, right? It's like, hey, it can be done
Yeah.
if the desire is there. And I think a lot of it is between the ears. With anything, we all have physical limitations or gifts, but I imagine a lot of yours is between the ears. That back half is almost always between the ears, no matter how physically gifted you are, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's how it felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
If
I
it
have
wasn't
to.
between the ears, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to sprint to show off in front of your family and friends. That is
Yep.
something that's unexplainable if it wasn't involved with some part of our psyche, right? Or our
Yeah.
nervous system or hormonal response. But um okay, and with the training, so are you doing 4 days of training, 2 days of work, maybe squeezing strength and short stuff, and then a day off? Are you still giving yourself a full day of reprieve, or now is every free day not from work training?
Yeah. The latter.
The latter. I go back and
Mhm.
forth on that because and a Bracken, I know you'll streak for a while, won't you, with working out? Like you'll go without
In the
missing
past.
in the past, right? Where I am
Yeah.
like a pretty firm, like, hey, let's work hard and let's work with purpose for 6 days. And then like do whatever you want on the seventh. So you just get a reprieve from even just the act, the thought, the do something else that you enjoy. But it doesn't sound like you have that luxury with 2 days off.
I mean, yeah, when we're not running calls or like actively working out at the station, like I don't know, we're we do sit from time to time. So
Okay, good.
I mean, I know it sounds crazy that like not having a scheduled day off, but I think it'll come more in the form of like long stints of days off than like a reoccurring day off.
Yeah. And it's not that he can't. Like most of this is just left up to him to execute. If he needs a day
Right.
off, he's going to take it. But the other thing is that I might push for more things if he were trying to hit a 5K or 10K. The 100-mile game is about being on tired legs.
Mhm.
And if you can survive the days where you need a day off but don't need a day off, you
Yeah,
survive enough of them and you're just more durable on race course and more effective. So again, like a lot of the things you have to do for an ultra aren't smart because an ultra is not smart. I know. I say this all the time, but my job's never to tell people that the goal is dumb. It's how can we most intelligently do this dumb thing? And
Yeah,
Ian, to his credit, is really good at choosing dumb things to do.
it's true.
And he's also really good at approaching them appropriately. So I think he spends a lot of time on Fatigue Lake. So his 40 to 45 miles, I believe, are amplified because he might have come off no sleep the night before. He might get home and nap for a few hours and then go out for his 16 miler, or he might go home and just get 12 done and then nap. Those 12 aren't 12. They're weightier than 12.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's just interesting because you'd think, okay, most at home would be like, well, it's a 100 miler and I'm on my feet longer. And so there's much more to this and it's more complicated and I must split more hairs. And oh, I'm just running a 5K. It's only 3.1. I don't need to split that many hairs. It's very simple. It's probably the opposite,
Yeah,
to be honest. Do you agree with that? Like, we need to split all the hairs if we're talking seconds or tens
Mhm.
of seconds in a 5K and execution and timing of everything. And in ultra, it's get you on your feet for a while. Let's prove to yourself you can work under duress for a long period of time. By proxy, you're going to have a good aerobic base, and then you show up. And sometimes it's a little bit of the role of the physical and mental dice that day, stomach gods and all of that, as much as it is like it's less hair splitting. I think I assume you guys would agree with that. Bracken, you would agree with that. It becomes more about good old fashioned get it done. And let's not worry
yeah,
about how.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
during Javelina, the question was, do I try to get laps done in 4 hours or 5 hours? Not like I need to hit this lap,
402 or
3 seconds left.
405.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you wanted to train for your best 5K, you could probably count the the number of ways to train for that. The best way, if you took the top 100 finishers at Leadville, you'd have dozens of ways they trained for it because you don't have to hit the dead center of the bullseye because there might not be one. There's as much mysticism in ultras as there is science. And there are some, like the top end. You brought up David Roach, that you're trying to set a course record. It's mostly science. But for the mid pack, for the tail pack, for even the trail end of the lead pack, there's as much voodoo as there is anything else.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to like I'm gonna wear my favorite, socks because those are the ones I feel better in,
Mm-hmm.
or things like that.
We all have that.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves there.
But I mean, that just like keeps happening, right? Like I'm just only doing these things because that's what I want to do to make
Yeah.
this bearable.
Well, even looking at Leadville itself, I read as many recaps after as I could after the previous year to get ready for this. And it's like, if you went to the Olympic 5K and you put a list of things that people did or didn't do, you'd have no check marks in the Olympic final for the 5K in the column of supplemented running volume with significant cycling. You'd have no one in the column that said bulletproofed with walking lunges. You'd have no one in the
Pulled an
column which is
all-nighter and then did my long run.
yeah, none of those people would say that. But if you went down through Leadville, you would have people that were like all running, mostly cycling, 50-50 running and cycling. Did
Lead a
not do
lead every day.
did no lunges, did 1,000 lunges a week. Like there's so many ways to do it that you just get to find the one that gets you through that training block in a good place.
It's almost freeing. It's almost freeing. Really. Is there a wrong way to do it? The only wrong way to do it is to not get time on foot in some capacity and fatigue
Yeah.
yourself. I don't care how you do it. Really.
It kind of feels like it's still like a work in progress for everybody. So like we're all kind of like in this like new frontier of like how do we get ready for this in the best way possible. So it's like fun having to like let's try this weird new strategy and see what happens.
I think the only pitfall is paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So many ways to do it that you can't commit to one. You have to commit to one for weeks at a time. And that one's going to work. And what Ian did well is he got on the course. He got in the mountains. Like for anything that his stats didn't match up to others, he ran Hope Pass. He did workouts on Hope Pass. He identified this is where he did he did the 50. He did the, what else did you do on that course? Just the 50, or did you do one other race on there?
And the 50 doesn't even touch that course. It's I've like run around Turquoise like a bunch. I've run Hope Pass. I've run in Twin Lakes a lot. Mount Albert, done quite a few times now.
He found the things that said this is going to suck on race day, and I don't want to, but I think we need to program some more runs on this terrain. That's as good as anything you can do.
What's your longest single session run leading into either of these races? Time wise.
Not counting races.
Not counting races. It would have been like 3.5, 4 hours. Okay. Just like
there'll be people sitting at home wondering, like, if I can run a 3 or 4 hour long run, can I do this if the right things are in addition to it?
Yeah, like that would be the caveat. It's like I did that run like 12 hours after getting off shift, or like having like a long night on shift, and then after like the next day I went out for another like hour and a half. You know, and then you get like all the other pieces still fell into place, but that was just a bigger piece.
So through these ultras, obviously you're finding yourself as an athlete and learning about yourself, I would assume, right? Like you've probably soaked up a lot of knowledge through your WTM races, and then of course these 100-mile completions. What are you learning the most about all of this? Is there any like lessons that stand out to you most, whether they're just personal or theory? Like, hey, this is what I'm discovering about either the training or racing that it takes to do this well.
I often come back to it. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Brakken, but I come back to a quote something you said a while ago about, I think it was post one of your Tahoe races, where you wrote down you're the toughest weak guy or whatever that you know. Something along those lines, right? And like I keep thinking about like, I don't want to say that. Like I don't want to like have to realize that about myself. So
yeah, okay. I'm fair weather tough.
Like it's super, it's doable. It just sucks at the moment.
The toughest weak guy or the weakest tough guy?
That was the quote. I'm the toughest weak guy I know and the weakest tough guy I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, gosh, like if I can do anything every day to get like a fraction of a percent like tougher in that regard, then like that's worth it to me. And that's like I'm nowhere near a top level in the sport, whether it be like OCR or ultra running or just running in general. But if I'm getting to a point now, I believe that like I have to work in those fractions of a percent every day. Like just put that little bit more. It's putting green marbles in a giant barrel full of red and green marbles, so that hopefully when I randomly draw one, it's a green marble again. Like I have to be able to like keep the momentum going.
You never know what's going to stick.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
I just self-criticized myself, and you're like, man, I don't want to be that. That's what kept me going. Of all the things we've done on calls, like you said something one time that embarrassed me for you, and I don't want to be that.
Well, like, you know, like I've been that guy, and I
we've all been that guy.
Yeah,
at some point.
But it takes someone else saying it out loud to be like, yeah, I've been that guy. I will probably be that guy again at some point, but why not try not to be that guy as much as possible? You know, it's whether that's like trying to finish a 100-mile race or like showing up as much as possible to like some emergency scene. Like that's all it is.
Do you ever use your job as perspective, being like, well, at least is it ever good? I don't know. Yeah, perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the nature of 911 calls is like most people will never have to call 911. So like when it's bad, and it's kind of nice not having to rely myself on the 911 system, you know. But that means I should be a part of it and like make it so that it's easier for people who need it.
But I just imagine, like, you see all this, you see suffering and you see bad situations, and then you're suffering on the mountain, but the perspective of like, well, she died in a car accident yesterday, and that person this, and here I am, poor me, pursuing a 100-mile race, and miserable doesn't seem so miserable when you have context outside of it.
There,
That's what I'm wondering.
there's 2 points I think about in that specific regard. Is like, one, I get to like my body has gotten me here this far, and so who's to say it can't get me the rest of the way? But also like the my past, like being overweight for so long, um, that something about that says that I shouldn't be able to do this, so I'm going to do it because I'm going to show you wrong. Um, so like it's really those two things. Is like it's super cool that I'm at the the I'm headed back to Twin Lakes. I've crested Hope Pass for the second time today, and I know I have this distance to go, but like I'm here so far. And also like everyone who said I can't do this, or everyone that I've told myself told me I can't do this,
Mhm.
is wrong. And
Mhm.
I'm gonna show them that they're wrong.
Well, and that's why that conversation we had on the phone mattered to me enough to say, which is the don't worry about the big goal, go up half a goal, is because like that I'm tough or I'm weak kind of thing. Too many of us are only tough when the real reason we're there is still attainable. And we'll do anything to ourselves as long as that
Yeah.
goal, the reason we're there is there. But as soon as that's gone, our armor's gone. Well, what am I even doing here? Suddenly I'm weak. And you're really not there to run 24 hours. You were, but it's not the only reason you're there. And I think that perspective is the thing that most people can't click into. When people DNF, more often than not, it's because their A goal was gone and they don't have a B goal that matters. And the B goal doesn't have to be time. It can be proving
Yeah.
people wrong. It can be, I don't belong here, so I'm going to be. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
horrible at B goals. You're good at getting to the point where it's no longer fun. I no longer want to be here, but I'm still going to. And that's usually when A goal is gone.
Yeah, feels like it goes pretty quickly. It's fun.
It's
They're
too,
A goals for a reason,
yeah.
Yeah,
right? The bell curve doesn't allow for many A's. And so it's always a stretch, right? It should be. I think the proper A goal should be reach for the star, not stars, reach for the moon sort of situation. Shouldn't it? It should be within reason, but barely
yeah,
if it goes perfect.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with about contingency goals. I see that with athletes sometimes. You ever see Bracken? An example of this. I always like somebody's shooting for, let's say, 20 minutes in the 5K, and they go out. You give them a time trial, and it's like, I know my fitness is there, and I'm ready to do it. And by mile 1, they're already behind, and by mile 2, they're even further behind, and they already know it. But you see, they kick home, and you see their
Mhm.
heart rate continued to go up and climb, and they fall short, and they're disappointed. And then you look at the data and what they did, and you say, you didn't give up on it. Like, you still fought for it, even though you knew it was over.
Mhm.
That I respect. I always comb through the pace chart, comb through the heart rate graph. Did you have a weak tough guy moment, or did you dig in even though your goal was gone? I always get respect that, right?
Yeah.
Like sort of like pushing at Javelina or things like that. That holds a lot of weight with me versus bagging it in and being, I'll try tomorrow. What happens when you bag it in? You're more likely to keep bagging it in.
Mhm.
So it's my 2 cents on that.
I agree.
What else do we have to add to this conversation? What's next, Ian? What dumb things
uh,
on the radar? Javelina.
Uh, Javelina's back on the schedule for
Great.
this year. I'm going to the Black Canyon 100K
This weekend.
next
Next
month.
weekend. Next.
Next month.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like
February 9th or something.
9th. Yeah,
I got somebody
yeah,
running Black Canyon too. You're doing the
nice.
100K?
Yes,
Sweet. It's on.
hell
Oh,
yeah.
we're gonna make this a competition.
Nice.
Jonathan, if you're listening, you better find Ian. We better go at it.
Yeah. Good luck.
I like it.
Yeah, I just entered a lottery for a last man standing in May. Earlier that month, I'm pacing the guy who paced me at Leadville at Cocodona 250, which I've got, I think, 70 miles worth of pacing. So
Yikes.
I've got all the climbs, so that'll be fun. Waiting to hear about another lottery for High Lonesome 100, which is less than an hour away from where I'm sitting right now. And then just do as much as I can in between then.
That's enough ultra running, if you ask me. Do you guys
Could
ever
be
work?
more.
Do you guys ever work the pointy end of the spear anymore? Do you go run some shorter stuff as complementary efforts, or are we full on just grind mode?
It seems to kind of flow back and forth. At this point, like the pointy end is a wider range. It feels like, like I'm not running like a 400, but I'll run like 1 to 3 minute intervals.
But race wise, you're not running anything under an hour.
No, I might run the 5K here in Leadville. Who knows?
Yeah, 10,000 feet's a good place to run a PR. So I suggest
Yeah.
tapering and peaking for
Less
it.
air resistance.
That's true.
Not very dense.
Don't worry, I've got carbon plated shoes now. We're good.
That's right. Well, Ian, thank you so much, both for letting me be a part of your journey and for coming on here and chatting. And we're
Yeah,
going to be
absolutely.
tracking you in Black Canyon.
Heck yeah, it's gonna be good.
I've enjoyed both of our chats so far, Ian. You making this approachable for people, I think, who are on the fence or in pre-contemplation. I think that's very invaluable.
I mean,
Yeah.
I hope so. Like it
Yeah.
should be super approachable.
Yeah, 100 miles, no big deal. On
Yeah,
that
right.
note, appreciate your time, man.
All right. Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate being here.
See you, boys.